significant participant in the sector on preparing board and also fishing nets, and also helping the family on post-harvest processing activities. And these are, they do together, men and women, so they are half of the fisher themselves. The significant that I would like to highlight here is that this group, not only the men, not only small-scale sector are not visible, are not recognized. The women themselves not also, recognized as the fishers. So this is very important. And so this is their life. And then for me, it is so important that we need to highlight this sector because they clearly contribute to the nutrition, really contribute to food security of the at the rural sector, where it is the big sector of the society. It means that if they are able to have food and then some income, it also meaning that they also are not so poor because they are able to help themselves. However, despite of all of this, with the new trend of development in which we are very much rely on international market and using technology, so with the rationale of the world, of the global world, saying that we have more population, the human population is rising, so there is really a need to secure more food, and then fishery is the target to increase production. And then there had been an assumption that when you capture resources, either from fresh water, from river, or from the sea, it meant that you take out biodiversity, and it really, become threatening because the kinds of capture would really cause into losing of biodiversity. That is the assumption. So the new idea is that, okay, we need to really have more control in fishing, and aquaculture now had been introduced because the ideology after aquaculture is that we are able to really control the type of products. We can also very clear on the target of the production, and we can really put into an investment to ensure that when we are investing something, we will not lose. And then there is also assumption that if we are doing more or promoting more aquaculture, it means that we will not take away natural resources. That is the assumption. So in Thailand particularly, this is the trend. Actually, before I get into the investment of aquaculture, I would like to say that the fisher themselves, the fishing, the coastal community, one way of, fishing, it is they are having a capture fishery. But at the same time, they do have a small cage in front of their house, and then they do natural aquaculture. But then the idea that we are talking here is that, okay, we cannot rely on small scale sector. We need to have big commercial fisher to invest, and then to secure more production on fishing, so we can really, have a continuing activity like processing, and we can also send the product for export to earn income. So that is the belief. So Thailand have put a lot of investment for technology development, and then have number of policy inviting for aquaculture. So I think this is the tendency. And then for next slide, please. Yeah, if you look into the type of aquaculture farming, you can see that we have shrimp. shrimp, actually, it is the biggest business of aquaculture in the country. And the place that they are having aquaculture of shrimp farm, they are both in the fresh, in the land area, no? It is not on the backfish. Some also introduced in the backfish in the mangrove area, and some they are also using the nearby the river, and then they just taking away of salt water and put, and it really changing the whole ecosystem of the area. And we also have oyster, we have clams, we have fishes. So many of the activity had been promoted, but it become a problem. Why in the positive way, no? It means that we are able to ensure increasing of production. But then the negative of it, there are a number of negative aspects. And then so far what had been happened, it is the real story in which I would like to give some more specific example to really draw out the lesson learned and then come with the issue on our advocacy in order to ensure that what we are promoting will ensure sustainable fishery and habitat management and ensure biodiversity, because small-scale fisher, they would be able to ensure production only when they have a very good ecosystem, when they are having a lot of good biodiversity of the coastal area or in the fresh water. So now I would like to introduce you to one particular cases where we have research. It had from the government, from the policy for the trend of government for increasing production. The government really promoting many different kinds of economic development and using the both the fresh water and also for the coastal area for increasing production. And in this case, what we are found, next slide, please. Next slide, yeah. You can see that in when we are thinking, no, it should be good, right? Because when the government promoting aquaculture, it means that the people in the coastal area, they would really be able to have a kind of alternative livelihood. They can earn more income, but it is not that case. Because the goal and objective of promoting aquaculture, they need to have high production. And in order to have high production, you have to have investment. You have to have technology. You need to ensure that you have a kind of market. You have to have technology for harvesting, and you have technology for processing, and you have a channel for marketing. And if you look back to the small scale fisher, their economic is small scale economic development. Therefore, it is beyond their capacity to invest into aquaculture. But since it is the target from the policy in order to increase amount of production from fishery sector, so the government also open space of natural resources for those who have money, for investor, both inside the country and also for foreigner, to really use the resources. It become problematic because the area where they are promoting aquaculture is also the area where small-scale fisher, they have been using for getting production, for getting their food, for getting their income. So it become problematic because this type of, the more you promote aquaculture, the the more that the natural resources had been taken away from the small scale sector, who are majority of of fishers. So it become not only on biodiversity aspect, but also impact on the people, because you push away the vulnerable groups, the small scale sector, the poorer sector out of economic development. And in terms of the management, since this group are not recognized, they are not seen, they just like someone, no? When the government make decision, this group have really not be able to access into information. They have no space for formal voice out their opinion, and also they have no space for advocate what they think should be done. They are not part of decision making. So it means that the opportunity for these people to continue their livelihood, to continue secure their food, to continue, have more of the small scale economic development. So it now putting them to have nowhere to go. So it really caused more many people out of the business. So since these people also don't have enough um, sufficient skills to select, okay, if they are not able to continue their fishing, what then they can do? Since they have no skill, they have no investment, so they become the labor of the big company. And since they have no voice, they have no skill, so they somehow indirectly and directly uh, having problem in terms of wages, in terms of security to continue have permanent income, and that is really cause a lot of social problems. But then in terms of the for the next slide, please. That now I would like to focus that the type of aquaculture, because you target for high production, you use single species. And in order to ensure that you have good production, you also have to feed them. And the feeding is also coming the product, the larvae from natural resources, and make into the feeding into, for become feeding for shrimp, for fish. So, and then in order to ensure that you have good production, you have also to use a chemical for cleaning your water. You also have to have use a lot of chemical for treatment if there are some disease in your aquaculture farm. And this water become polluted. And then since we don't really have efficient water management, we have no guarantee to really, clean it before releasing to a natural water source, either to the sea or to the fresh water. It become polluted. Water released from this aquaculture farm to mangrove area, to the sea, to the coastal area. So automatically it pollute natural resources, and it affect to losing of many of biodiversity from this type of economic driven aquaculture farming development. So what moreover, no, next slide. Moreover, since we also do not have a very good guarantee of efficient good management or good governance in fishery management. So those who have money, they can really, put a lot of money to invest in farming on the sea. And the more there are more aquaculture farm in the sea, it means that they have less area for small scale fisher to continue their fishing. So it becomes both problematic in terms of the space they are not able to access, and at the same time, because of the aquaculture farm destroy ecosystem of the area. the production or diversity of the coastal resources are not secure. So it really caused a lot of problem in both the social aspect and in terms of the natural way. So my what I'm telling here is that uh, there had been a lot of issues from a very the idea of aquaculture. Actually, it is not that bad, but because of really not effective governance in the fishery management, it has really caused a lot of problem in many aspects. So my problems, my issue that I would like to advocate is that uh, when we are thinking of increasing production from fishery sector, we should not only look in terms of economic driven development, or we should not really focus on increasing amount of production and aiming for have more money, but we should have more balanced way of habitat, how we going to continue maintain biodiversity, conserve the natural resources, and at the same time secure production. And then in terms of secure production, we should not only looking for inviting investment from outside of those who have more money, but then we need to have the policy to ensure that how we're going to increase capacity of small scale fisher to have alternative for their livelihood, ensure that they are able to also access the benefit from this type of activity, and then increase their knowledge, and then the way or the practices on aquaculture in such a way that it will not really lead into destroying or polluting natural resources. So the concept of ecosystem-based management, my almost last slide. Next one. Next, yeah. Next slide. Sustainable eco, yeah. So what I would like to advocate here is that when we have to, when we are working on fisheries, we have to recognize not commercial fishers only, but we need to recognize small scale fisher. And when we are introducing fishing, we need to talk about sustainable fisheries and biodiversity conservation. And then the concept of ecosystem uh, fishery and habitat management need to be really reflect, make into as the measure and management system. So I think that is, we should not really only focus on production, only focus for investment, only aiming for production, only aiming for the income. We need to have the, the, the social aspect of vulnerable groups, secure sustainable livelihood of the small scale fishers, recognizing the human right issue of the small scale fisher, recognizing the unequal equality and equity between men and women in society. We need to have really a process of governance in management of fishery management. So my concern, and I would like to connect with the many other country to really join me to really advocate that we need to, when we are promoting something, it is not uh, we need to think about people, and the people that we are talking here, we need to really think below of the small scale one. We need to really understand that these people we have to become a target and then put them on board, and then it has to be reflected in the policy and in the law what exactly the government will have to do in order to ensure that the policy and the law will be benefit to small scale fisher. We should have less, target for profit, in which it is the trend of the world right now. And we need a balance between economic development and we need to ensure that biodiversity would be, continue, conserve. And the process of management, we tend to have so far, now what had been happening is more of top down, and then think that, okay, this is better, and think by outsider. But we somehow need to fix the issue of, how to get the people, multi-stakeholder management, how to really, develop a program in such a way that it is appropriate and suitable to the ecosystem, decentralization, ecosystem-based management. And then the process of management, it is has to be ensure people access to information, people ensure effective participation. And then we have to recognize and then put the small scale people on board, and then have a specific target or policy using the principle that had been accepted by FAO voluntary guideline for securing the livelihood of small scale fisher to become developed in the country. So we need to have a very specific policy addressing small scale fisher. And then what we want to do now is we need to have a very high priority attention from the policy maker. But then at the same time, there is also a need among the small scale fishing community, not only in Thailand, but then in Southeast Asia, in Asia Pacific, that we have to really join hand, advocate for the right of small scale fisher, and then advocate the type of fishing activity that would be secure and then conserve biodiversity.
The burden of corporate impacts on their communities and livelihood. The control of aquaculture should not be put in the hands of big corporations, and instead should be placed to sectors such as fisher folks who consciously protect the biodiversity and resource on these coastal and marine areas. Remarkably, we should not only look on increasing profits. It is more important as to maintain biodiversity supply of these resources and the state of vulnerable groups such as fisher folk communities. The people should be at the center of development. Our next presenter will go into the perspective of farmers and farm workers on the ongoing destruction of our environment and biodiversity. He is from Roots for Equity, Pakistan, an organization which aims to strengthen communities and movements for attaining political, economic, social, and environmental justice. Please welcome Mr. Wally Haider.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you, APRN, for inviting me to speak to this important forum. I'm sure we all are caught up these days, but I'll try to tackle the topic. Uh, I will talk on bit, uh, starting with a background of Pakistani agriculture. Pakistan is a highly feudal-based society where majority of the land is held by the landlords, and a few tiny portion of the population hold small land holding, and majority are the landless farmer. So is the landless farmer, basically small and landless farmer, who are producing food, if, and the foreign exchange, especially for the cash crops, cotton, for the country. As many of you may know, that cotton is the one of the most important cash crop for us, and the reason for the foreign reserve. Mm, to get foreign exchange, uh, we have to go to for cotton production, and that's how we get the foreign exchange. Mm, so the cash crop production and the food crop production, but after the structural adjustment program and new liberal policies since 90s, after green revolution, uh, the heavy investment have came into Pakistan, for especially for agriculture sector, uh, uh, the, mm, in especially in the cash crop production, as Ravadi was mentioning, the heavily focus on productivity rather than the quality of food, the process of food, and very control of the technologies in agriculture production. So it's bring a whole lot of corporate driven agenda in agriculture all over Pakistan, but also in many uh, villages of Pakistan as well. Uh, in that context, if I want to bring your attention how this kind of corporate, hegemonic agriculture production affected the small and landless and the poor population, the marginalized population of Pakistani in the context of COVID-19. So it's there are three layers of affectees. One is those who are the farmers, small farmers, have a little bit of land holding, and others are those who have no land, but basically the agriculture workers. And then the third one is the one who is involved in livestock farming. Farmers have, it was this COVID and lockdown started in Pakistan. While the wheat harvest, wheat is one of the major crop, food crop for us. 70 more than 70% of Pakistani population eat wheat for their food consumption. So it was very important, and the country was very upset how it's going to be happen for the wheat harvesting. But government have announced ease for wheat harvesting in all over Pakistan. So it's started a wheat harvesting in late March after the lockdown. But those who don't have land and used to come from other district to another district to uh, harvest the wheat crop as agriculture worker, so they can't travel because the transport was stopped. It's locked down due to lockdown. The transport was not there, so you can't go one place to another place. But the wheat harvesting has already been started. So what happened? People around the surrounding area just able to do the wheat harvesting, and that took them a lot of time to for harvesting. And during the harvesting, there was rain. We are facing a lot of climate change issues these days. We can't had we never had that kind of rain in this season, where many of our crops, especially wheat, have been damaged, and the production had reduced due to that. So at one hand there is less agricultural workers are available for those who have land, and on the other hand the agriculture workers don't have any means of livelihood, and their main source of their food security is when there is a wheat harvesting season. They go and do wheat harvesting labor, and they get wheat out of their labor. So that wheat they used to save for whole year. So their whole family, the wife, the husband, and two kids, they all have to migrate from one district to another district. That when they harvested the wheat, there was no way they can go to the market. So the middleman used to visit them, and their price wise was highly reduced. So the farmers faced negative effect of here as well, where they got less amount of their harvesting. And uh, and now, after the wheat harvesting, it is the cotton sowing season now. And as you know that after this corporatization of agriculture and the commodification of seed, I know in Pakistan there is a law which amended in 2015, that the farmers should not have their own seeds for the next season. They must buy a seed from a recognized authorized dealer, which is authorized by the government, and it's supposed to be the certified seed from a corporation. This bill, the act has been passed in the pressure of the multinational corporation, especially Monsanto. So now is the wheat season. So because farmers don't have their own indigenous cotton seed, it's supposed to they had in the history they used to have their own seed. But now with this green revolution and corporatization of agriculture and this new kind of corporate control, policies and rules in the country, so there is no local, less or no local seed available. The farmer are forced to get seed from the market. But what happening now? Uh, Farmer has been said that this is the seed, and it is much higher rate to compared to last year. But the problem, they don't mind the higher seed. The problem is the farmers have been said that we don't guarantee that this seed will germinate. This seed will grow in time. So farmer have left nowhere. They have to sow the seed. They have to take the risk because they don't have other options. So the multiple layer of operation and exploitation are facing by the farmers and the agriculture worker. Agriculture workers have no means of livelihood, as Ravadi was also mentioning as like fisher folk. That's the agriculture workers don't have any other alternate livelihood sources, especially in this kind of scenario, in this kind of work. And now, lastly, I would like to bring your attention to the livestock farmers. Uh, uh, in Pakistan, Nestle and others have bought the commercial breeding, not Nestle per se, but Nestle for the milk production. But government, with the help of European government, bringing livestock, breeding, new livestock technology breeding system. So with this COVID thing, farmer milk has been reduced. The price have been reduced at least half. So they have their milk. They go to the local market, and a lot of others are coming there. So supplies are a lot, and the demand is less. So their milk price was reduced. And then the government is also propagating in national mainstream media and print media and everywhere that this loose milk from the livestock, which the livestock farmer are producing, is bad for your health, and you need to get a packet milk. So this is the kind of commodification of milk sector, livestock dairy sector, and it's going on. And these livestock farmers are being forced and been most affected by the COVID. They already been facing a marginalization, harassment from the government, that they should not sell this the milk in the market because is not hygienic, is not safe. There is a drive because the milk industries are very active, and especially in one of the province, it says that they will ban loose milk. They will only allow the packaged milk in the country, in that province of Punjab, which was the biggest province in Pakistan. But they are trying to replicate this all over Pakistan. I say that unless or until farmers have land rights, there are genuine agrarian land reform, where all the kind of productive resources, which include land, seed, water, livestock, everything, is controlled and owned by the farmers and the local communities. There is no solution of their miseries or of their hardship. And it is the only land ownership, land rights, which gives that strength to the farmer to have their dependency and independency in the farming sector. And if the farmer have no this time have showed us that if farmers have land, if you have food sufficiency, you can survive in any kind of situation. You know that the transport and the airlines and everything is closed, but people are alive because they are having food. Their food supplies are going on. If the farmers have been given the land rights and the productive resources rights, especially land and seed and water, they could have more benefited to the society. They could have more, given to the society and this world to solve the, because world will have nutritious food, safe and nutritious food, not genetically modified seed, the pesticide sprayed food. So we need to understand that the solution lies on agroecological based agriculture, and also where we negate. I completely agree with Ravadi that productivity based centric development and growth idea need to be negated, and only the idea and the concept of food sovereignty, where it does not matter a less production, but the quality of food, the control and commodification of food, and of course the liberty of the farmers and the people of the country is very important. And I think unless and until we will join hand, all the farmers of the world unite and fight for their rights to land and their fight to productive resources, because the corporation are getting strengthened, they are getting bigger and bigger. Earlier six corporation are controlling, now three corporation are controlling most of the agri business. So the farmers also need to be get in touch and get together and join for their freedom, for their liberty, for their food sovereignty. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ali, for that comprehensive report. It is true that corporate agenda continues to proliferate, especially in agricultural sectors, not only in Pakistan, but in the whole region. With the global health crisis of COVID-19, one of the main sectors affected is the agricultural sector. Farmers have not been able to harvest their goods, are forced to use unsustainable variety of seeds. They continue being they continue being landless, and they are continuously getting no support from their governments, and this hinders so much for nations and farmers to attain food security. Thank you, presenters, for putting together these timely discussions for today's session. We appreciate the reports and case studies presented, and I'm sure that it gave our participants a well-rounded view on the environmental state of play in the region. To further substantiate this, we'll now head on to our open forum session. We have collated all of the questions submitted in our chat box during the presentations. So for the first question, I believe this is addressed to Frankie.
Hi.
This question is from Zara. She said, thank you for the informative presentation. Deforestation in Indonesia due to the palm oil industry has gained prominence in recent years, with some international businesses and even governments threatening to boycott products that source palm oil in locations with problematic business practices. I want to ask if there has been any improvement or initiatives by the Indonesian government in recent years, given this added pressure to sustainably produce palm oil.
Yeah, we have more policies related with the palm oil plantation issues. We have a run policy. We have a national action plan for human rights and business and human rights. And then we have a new policies about Indonesia sustainable palm oil standards. So, but in the practice, like moratorium policies for new license of timber or plantation, in the practice they don't do. So until now, we still found the local and national government to give a license for the companies. I think because the mass of member of our parliament in national and local levels, they are from the companies. They are a member of companies. They are supported. Yeah, supported from the companies. That is a problem. And then we found the companies have they use a corruption way how they give money to the officer and then the members of legislation. That is the issue. We have more policy, but they don't do in the practice. That is my response. Thank you.
Thank you, Frankie, for addressing Zara's question. I hope that answered Zara's inquiry about the steps taken by the Indonesian government regarding the palm oil production in the country. Second question from Feliciano to Ravadi. For Ms. Ravadi, given that there are no clear policies supporting small-scale fishers at the moment, can we say that the established aquaculture systems in Thailand right now are not environmentally and socially sustainable? Are there existing aquaculture ventures already promoting good sustainable practices? Thank you. Ms. Ravadi, can you please address that question from Feliciano? Thank you.
I would like us to understand the nature of aquaculture, that in general, even more than 100 years ago, the people, the coastal community, they have been practicing capture fisheries and also aquaculture, because when they have something, they had just have a small cage in front of their house, and then they do aquaculture, small scale aquaculture. So, but then the tendency of the government to promote for high production, and there is no clear and specific measures to ensure good governance in aquaculture management, and less opportunity or somehow no systematic quota system of small-scale fisher, including women fisher, to be in the policy decision-making mechanism. Therefore, I haven't seen the area where I have seen a lot of production. I think Thailand have been done very good in terms of increasing production, and we are one of exporter of the fish production to the world. But then when I look into the small scale sector, who are 80% of the people in these fisheries, there had been no evidence from the government side now to really promoting a kind of ecosystem or balance between nature and people, and then the benefit come to small scale. Although in terms of the written document in the policy, there had been so many good work, there had been many of research done, but in terms of the actual implementation, I think it's still very weak. But at the same time, there are a number of the fisher organizations, including civil society organizations, have been directly working with fishing community. They have been really, they have certain many of the area where demonstrate good ecosystem fishery management in which aquaculture is a part of that. But they had been a kind of insurance that there are certain space that been used for aquaculture. You cannot really, you know, although you have money, you cannot go beyond this territory. And then there had been a kind of community recreation, what can be done, what cannot be done, those kind of things. There had been a good practices promoted among the small-scale fishery organization and civil society. However, if we are looking in terms of the mainstream policy-driven or systematic management from the government structure, I think this is something that we need to advocate even more to really ensure that that kinds of ecosystem-based approach had been, you know, in the formal structure, and then whatever decision had to be based on the good governance, and then the balance between production, ecosystem, biodiversity, people benefit, people center. This is something that an issue that we need to advocate. So what I suggest we want to do, actually, I would like to advocate to the network here that those who are working in coastal community, I really would like to, you know, have a kind of working group among our bigger group. We need to also link with the bigger group, but then focus on those who have common interests to really see how we're going to use already available global policy on ensuring security of the small-scale fisher and ecosystem-based management put into the policy, and also they have enough resources and mechanism to follow, you know, under human right approach, and then, you know, looking for target for small scale vulnerable group sector. I think this is something that we need to continue join our hand and working together. I also would like us to follow up, and then I also would like to send some questionnaire to those who are interested on coastal resource management and fisheries sector to really make use of available voluntary guideline on small scale fisher promoted by FAO, in which I think we can really, you know, have a voice and then change the system, not for profit, but for people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravidi, for that answer to Feliciano's question. I hope that addressed his question regarding the initiatives taken by the Thailand government in ensuring sustainable aquaculture systems in the country. What I got from that is that CSOs and small communities are starting, but sadly the government is not supporting these initiatives and are not adapting it to a larger scale. Another question that we got is from Zara. I believe this is addressed to PJ from Namasufa. Regarding banana plantations in Compostela Valley, Philippines, what are the hurdles in bringing issues like this, peasant and worker struggles, to the bigger attention of the public or to a bigger stage to raise awareness and hopefully enlist the public support in putting pressure on transnationals and the government to correct these business practices?
Okay, so the first hurdle that we encountered in the last 5 years is that the first was the declaration of martial law in Mindanao and the black propaganda done by the capitalists and state forces towards our union. So state forces conducts meetings in barangays, telling local farmers and the community not to support the struggle of the union because they are saying, state forces are saying, that we are backed by the communists. So these propagandas intensify when martial law was declared last 2016. So the second second was about the local farmers. They are entitled to follow the contracts they signed with the company. So local farmers have a contract when they want to sell their bananas in Sumipro. So last 2016, we already organized an organization for the local farmers, the local banana growers, to assert their demands in the one-sided contract they signed with the management. But again, when martial law was declared, the farmers forced to withdraw their demands because they are afraid to engage during the martial law. So, thank you, Julia.
Thank you, PJ, for addressing that question. We're on to our last question for this open forum. This is from Enteng Bautista. I believe this is addressed to our speakers. There is a strong opposition across Southeast Asia against corporate plantation. In the Philippines, particularly in Mindanao, revolutionary groups and indigenous communities are opposed and have been punishing attacking their operation. Would like to know if there are similar resistance by indigenous peoples, peasants, or revolutionary groups in Indonesia, Bangladesh, or other Southeast Asian countries. So, would any of our speakers like to address that? I believe Enteng asked about if there are any people's resistance from countries such as Indonesia, Thailand, and Bangladesh. So I think let's go first with Frankie. Then let's just follow the sequence from the speakers. So
Yeah.
Frankie, then Ravadi, then Wally. Thank you.
Yeah, I need to respond to the anything about this as my organization. We join with national and local organization related with the indigenous peoples and peasant movement. So every year we have a conference, and then we apa merumuskan ini?
Define.
Yeah, we define our demand for national and local government, also for international apa pihak ini?
Party.
Yeah, international parties like EU or UN organization. So also we going to parliament and then government with our communities, and then the mass of the communities is affected of communities from the plantation or timber or mining companies. So that is our opposite the state situation, and then the companies comes. Yeah, thank you.
Ravadi, would you like to add on your country's?
Yeah. Yes, there is. There had been, not only there had been a struggle and fighter from people's movement, the fishers themselves, peasant farmers, and join hand together. However, I observed that there also we all also caught into a destructive structure from the policymaker or those who have power. They also have a kind of a smart way of buying people, no? So some of the people who used to fight become, changing their attitude. And then there are newcomer, and then there had been also circumstances that the formal structure put the people, the human rights defender, into a very difficult system. Most of the people who are the Korean fighter, they are putting on court, so it is make their life more difficult. So we need to really have younger generation. We have to have new person come in, and then there is really a need that we need to keep the core value and fight on. And then another aspect, I think in terms of empowerment of women, from my side, from the work of small scale fishers, there had been a people defends their right, and then the struggle. But it is not sufficient because of there had been a kind of cultural issues that make the people have blind the attitude or understanding of the people, because the working relationship between even men and women among the same family, they are not also value and recognize the right of each other. So it's so hard for women also to defend or to really, fight for their right, because they have not really get enough support. So we need to continue. We need to really fight. And there had been a progress that we have made, of course, but it is not sufficient, because what we want to do is we need to have a more systematic system that put into the formal system, that whatever we advocate, it should be a normal practice of the formal structure. It is should be the role and responsibility of the government structure to respond to the need of the people, to secure biodiversity, to secure the life of small-scale fishers, to secure small-scale farmer and labor, those kind of things. So we had been really have to fight many layers now, because the attitude, ideology, the vision of the people had been now, fighting between different ideologies. And because of economic problem of the poor, somehow it's quite difficult for them to uh, to maintain or to fight, because of problem of the family, economic problem of the family. So I think this is the struggle that we are facing. Therefore, a kind of network that we are, small network that we are working on, keep support each other, moral support each other, and then learning on how other movement have been doing, also inspiring on, keep on, motivate the fight of the movement. So I think we really need this kind of continuing kinds of learning, sharing, motivation, inspiring each other. So this is something that, so the move that the space that we are going to, to conquer has to be bigger and bigger. And that's why it become our common target that we are fighting for. So I also would like to thank for Asia Pacific Environmental Network and also APRN Research Network that have facilitated a kind of sharing and networking among us. And so we need to really try to develop a clear evidence base, and to have really advocate and then have common target that we would together fight for better change the world and then secure that our right had been, protected. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravadi. Wadi?
Uh, yeah, I think Anti also had sent a question to best practice of organizing among farmers. Uh, for me and for us, organizing, as Ravadi again mentioned, are kind of very, have a, in tiers, in layers. Uh, at one hand, we need to sensitize uh, the masses. What is happening? What is the corporate agenda? And what is at stake for us? And then we need to provide some kind of practical examples. So at one hand, there is a political fight for us with corporation, with the monopolistic government, and then we need to show the masses the best practice as question. So, for instance, there are many organizations and groups are maintaining, practicing agroecological farms where they practice indigenous local seeds, kind of indigenous inputs, organic cow dung, manure, and other kind of bio not chemical based pesticide, but natural pesticide which is not harmful to the environment and the land. So this practice you do under ecological practice will demonstrate local and the masses that this is viable and this is practicable, and this is also for them to provide them subsistence as well. So the fight is on ground and also in the field, and also the legal fight. For instance, PKMT has filed a petition in the government, in the court, High Court, that these anti farmers bill, which allows multinational corporation to commodify seeds and market the seed, and on the other hand, it stops local farmer to save their indigenous local seed and use for the next season. So and the hearings going on. So we have a different layer of struggle and our resistance. But the most important fight and the most important layer is on the ground with the farmer, with the masses, where they are in line with their miseries. Get in touch with them, be with them, so that they feel that you are also feeling their pain. Unless or until they feel that we all are one, they will not trust us. So it's time for us to be and to support in solidarity with the small and landless farmer, because the enemies are different sorts of enemies. Like I was mentioning that now the livestock farmer at livelihood at stake. So government is banning the loose milk selling in the market. So what will they do? So their whole livelihood based on their milk which they are getting from their livestock. So life is becoming more and more difficult for farmers. So this time the, an important and is a need of the time that we should also get together and stand up and rise up and fight for our rights, and unite farmers around the region across the globe, so that we have a strong force to resist the corporate capture.
Thank you, speakers, for addressing that question. While a lot has been has been stated and started by many organizations and people's communities for the fight of our environment and biodiversity, it is true that a lot needs to be done, and the fight is far from over. So we need to stay united and continue the fight to end corporate plunder on our environment and biodiversity. So thank you so much for those who submitted their questions, and thank you for the speakers for addressing them. If you have any additional questions for the speakers or regarding this discussion, please feel free to email us at APRN, and we will try our best to coordinate that with those who speak in today's presentation. And in addition, APRN has also released its newsletter for Earth Month 2020. So I believe it is shared by my colleague Erickson in our chat box. So it tackles about environment and biodiversity issues. So I highly encourage everyone to give it a look. So We will now call on to Leah Alonso of Asia Pacific Network of Environment Defenders to wrap up today's session.
Thank you, Julia. On behalf of the organizers, I would like to thank everyone who attended this webinar today. So as we all know, today is the International Day of Biodiversity. And as we heard from our speakers a while ago, it is very obvious that in the Asia Pacific, biodiversity is really rich and it has sustained the lives of the people for many generations. But there are many problems that are also arising, particularly more on how local and transnational corporations utilize or extract the natural resources of different countries. For example, in Indonesia, there's continuing deforestation because of their attempt to expand the plantations. And in the Philippines, there are extremely low wages or hazardous working conditions for the workers in Sumifru, which is a Japanese transnational corporation. And in Thailand, the small fisher folk are being affected by the expansion of the aquaculture, which only uses very few aquatic species and which affects the quality of water in the fishing grounds. And in Pakistan, there's an issue of killing the sustainable farming ways or the traditional ways of farming of the small farmers, wherein their seeds are not being allowed to be used and they're being forced to buy from large corporations. So what is common among these countries is that it is the poor and the vulnerable sectors who are being affected the most, while there are only a few corporations who benefit from our natural resources. Many of these operations are actually backed by governments and are they're getting some sort of support from the government. That's why they can continue their plunder of our natural resources. Despite the opposition of local communities, these still persist, sacrificing the livelihood of the people and also the environment. And when the people oppose these projects or operations, they are faced with repression. So we heard a while ago that there is criminalization in Indonesia, extrajudicial killings in the Philippines, and other forms of harassments, threats, intimidations, arrests that are going on. However, we should also focus that if we want to take care of the environment to continually benefit from its natural resources, we need to be scientific in our approach. And what is science telling us is that we are extracting and utilizing natural resources in an unsustainable way. And we need to take care of the environment so that we can continue to benefit from it. And so that the next generation will also continue to benefit from it. So we need to hold the corporations or the people who are accountable for these environmental destruction. So you also need to highlight that environmental issues are also human rights issues. It's not just a matter of biodiversity being affected, but how these affect the people themselves. So just as our environment has an ecological threshold, the people also has a threshold or has a limit. And they will always stand up and take action if their rights are being trampled upon. So we can always find hope in the continuing action of the organizations in the different countries. For example, it was mentioned that the organizations wherein our speakers belong to have continuing projects on awareness raising, capacity building, and they're also filing legal cases against many violators. There are also other initiatives such as community organizing and continuing action at the grassroots level. So as we know, there are many ways that we can address these problems. We can address these at the local, at the national, and even at the international level. That's why it's very important that different countries also support each other, especially those which have the same issue, such as the environmental plunder of their natural resources. So whatever we advocate, it is clear that there should be systemic changes to address these challenges. and not just some piecemeal tokenistic action by our government. So the destruction of our biodiversity has brought us ever more vulnerable, not only to economic challenges, but to also health issues such as what we are experiencing in the pandemic. And this pandemic also poses great challenges for us to continue our work. But as long as we are trying to pursue what is good for the people, and as long as we stand united, we can face these challenges together. So we would like to invite you to join us in the next webinar, since this is a webinar series. The next one will be on June 5 about the global mining industry and the people's resistance in the time of COVID-19, which is organized also by APRN, Asia Pacific Network for Environment Defenders, International People's Conference on Mining, Yes to Life, No to Mining, and the International League of People's Struggles, Commission 19. So the speakers are going to be from the Philippines, Myanmar, and Papua New Guinea. So if you are interested, you can check out the Facebook page of APNED and APRN for the details. So the next topics would be about other environmental issues such as large dams. And if you have any suggestions, you are very free to share them with us. So again, thank you for attending. And please stay until the end of the program since we're going to have a photo op. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah, for that ending remarks for our session today. We highly encourage everyone who attended today's session to attend our future webinar sessions. And as we can see, Leah is already holding up the paper that we asked everyone to prepare beforehand. So if anyone can share their videos now so that we can take our photo op.
How to do photo op? Just like this?
Yes, just put up your sign. And we're going to hold it for about a minute so that our staff can take a screenshot. So about 10 seconds. Kyle, are you taking a photo? So the others, if you don't have a sign, you can just open your video so we can see you. There you go. Yeah, and so we can see if you're still there. And please open your videos. Hi. Okay. If you don't have your sign, that put them up. Okay, so everybody smile. 1, 2, 3. And again, okay, open your videos. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Long live international solidarity.
Long live international
Solidarity.
Yay.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We hope that today's session enlightened and motivated us to continue to work towards our advocacy in raising awareness and capacitating people's movement to effectively campaign against corporate plunder and environment exploitation. We hope that you will join us again next time on our future sessions. Thank you, and we'll see you soon. To end today's session, I would like to call on Pasada Band to give us a cultural presentation.
Magandang araw, kami po ang Pasada at nakikiisa sa pagbibigay pugay at pasasalamat sa ating mga health workers at frontliners. Kami po ay naniniwala na malalagpasan natin ang pagsubok na dumapo sa ating bayan at maging sa ibang parte ng mundo. At sana maging dahilan ng karanasang ito upang tayo ay maging mas matatag. At pagkatapos nito, tayo ay babangon at magtatayo ng komunidad. ng lansangan, iatid ang diwa ng pagkakaisa. Sa dulo man ng mundo, magsama-sama tayo. Sa dulo man ng mundo, hawak kamay kayo, ang bagong komunidad.
Congrats, guys.
Congrats. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Ravadi, Wally, and Frankie. Thank you very much.